So I have this theory about relapse that basically every time we relapse, we learn something more and something deeper about our addiction and why we're addicted in the first place. Or at least that's what I tell myself every time I relapse, so I can feel better about the relapse.
Delusion. Convince yourself.
Hi, if you're new to the channel, I'm in Nile. I'm a drag artist. Basically, I lip sync to other people's voices, which means I've been hiding behind other people's voices. And I think slowly, and this is something that drag has allowed me to do, is to speak a little bit more about myself. And the thing, that's my cat over there. I think that's her shadow. Drag has actually helped me want to find my own voice. And slowly, bit by bit, I'm making these videos where I speak as myself with a wig. And the subject that is on my mind, especially at the moment, is addiction and why I keep going to it and why I keep relapsing and why it somehow doesn't go with where I'm going in my life, which is towards more clarity in my relationships and everything else, and somehow I still keep smoking. Well, I think the reason I'm talking about this is I'm in the middle of a house move. I have to be somewhere new in about 10 days, and that moving just always brings out all the feelings and makes me very reflective and look back on my life and where I'm going, and you're like, oh, why the fuck did I choose to be so different? And then you realize, no, you didn't choose to be different, you just are. And by the way, a little disclaimer, this is not a PSA against drugs or anything, because I think the war on drugs is so hypocritical, and banning drugs is not going to help anything. It's certainly not going to stop people from being addicted. But I think when you have underlying mental and emotional health problems, maybe you should not be smoking weed every day. I think as addicts, we're always waiting for that epiphanic moment where we just have this big reveal of why we're addicted and everything will change and then you'll be sober for the rest of your life. And I think that has a lot to do with the addict's mentality, which is basically that, oh shit, the sun is in the way. The sun, I gotta accept that the sun is here and work with it. A big one for me is pleasing other people. And I think the reason I was always taking drugs, for me drugs were never about partying. I've tried all the party drugs, but I've never felt I needed them. What I needed was something to calm me down, take the edge off, so I can function and be like everybody else in a way. But basically what you end up doing when you're trying to please other people is wanting, the validation from other people. Is like a moving target, because every time you please someone else will be displeased, and it never works. You're never gonna get there. I've only ever had one moment of like an epiphany where I realized something about my addiction and I just didn't feel the need to smoke again. It was about 5 or 6 years ago. I discovered the work of Alice Miller. She wrote the drama of The Gifted Child, and when I read that book, over the next 10 days I read every other book by her, and I felt what basically she showed me a part of myself I didn't know before. Like I thought, oh, this is why I behave this way. This and this about my childhood led to this. And I think, ever since then I've been searching for that moment where something or someone shows me something about myself, which is so stupid because the answer is already in you. I think what's important to know about in healing your addiction, whatever your drug of choice is understand what that drug gives you and not just trying to fight it and get it out of your system, but because it's doing something right on some level. And I think if you can understand why you go to it and what it gives you, then you can realize what you're missing and try to get it from something else. I quit. One of the times that I quit was when after talking with my therapist, and he asked me basically what is your relationship with the drug? Because you obviously have a relationship with this weed. And over the next few weeks after I thought about it and processed it, I realized something that is actually very sad, is that the weed was like my best friend. It's the thing that I was connected to the most. And even now, like when I travel, go abroad and come back to Amsterdam, the first thing I want to do when I come back from the airport is go smoke a joint. It's almost like you're coming home to your partner. Which is sad, but it's good not to also get stuck in the story, because even if you are sad on some level, that's just one part of you, that's not all of you. And I think it's important to embrace the sadness and say, okay, this is what I feel, and maybe have a good cry, and hopefully then you won't need the drug. I think to go back to, just to circle back to what I said in the beginning about with every relapse you learn something about yourself. There is truth to that, because clearly whatever you're hiding away with your addiction and the drugs is something very painful to look at. So maybe you need to look at it in small doses, or at least that's in my case. I take about 45 minutes to jump into a cold pool, or if the sea's cold. I can't do I don't rip the Band-Aid off. I take my time with everything. So that's why I started doing drag at 41 years old. Basically, the whole idea is to become more self-aware. Because when you're self-aware, then you're not caught off guard. You can almost see yourself. You know how it's so easy to give advice to our friends or other people? Because we can see that this is not us. You can almost see it like a character in a movie. And the idea with self-awareness is that you get better at it gradually. I mean, it would be very nice if we were all like Eckhart Tolle, and basically had this big moment of epiphany and suddenly we're present. But unfortunately for the rest of us, it has to be very gradual, and it has to be step by step, and you relapse and you get better. And I think the idea is that with every time you start to become more self-aware, gradually you'll reach a point where it's almost like if you can see yourself like a character in a horror movie, or like, bitch, don't open that door. I think the thing with addicts is that we love a good story. All people love stories, actually, but I think all of us love stories, and we create stories about ourselves, and we tell ourselves stories about ourselves that we believe. Just again, like the addiction, that I can't do it without this drug. I think stories are good, they're not all bad, but I think it's important to recognize their stories. Basically, again, to use that example with the character in a horror movie, is to realize that all these things that control you, those feelings that take over, that drive you to the addiction, they're not all of you. I told you my drag name is In Denial. Basically, again, it's a play on words, obviously, about me being deluded and in denial all my life, and so it fits in that way. But I think what has really helped me is not only to become more clear, which is a cliche, maybe I'm a bit more clear, but actually I understand that me, the guy behind In Denial, behind the drag, it's just another story. It's just a story that I've believed for so much longer, that I behave in this way, that I'm afraid of love, that I'm gonna be hurt, and all of these are stories. And even the bigger story is that you can't handle the pain of being hurt. It's almost like voices like Eckhart, or any voice that is wise and calm and relaxed and not pushing you or forcing you to have shame about your addiction, is a good voice, and you should let it in. And that's how you can, when you make space for other things, then there will be less space for the addiction, rather than fighting it off. Well, I'm not gonna wrap everything up today, and I thought I'll just try this and see if it works, whatever that means. If I get enough likes or comments. Speaking of which, comment, like, and subscribe, and let your comments be about something to do with addiction. Tell me about your addiction. What are you addicted to? Are you still struggling? Have you quit? Do you even want to quit? So thanks for watching.
This mind-made sense of self is also much more focused on the negative than the positive. To be free, you awaken to who you are beyond your history and your life situation.